Silent shadows of the sea. Sharks are nature's most misunderstood marvels. Neither villains nor mindless hunters, they are living relics of evolution, masters of survival for over 400 million years. Each fin slice through water tells a tale of precision, balance, and ancient instinct. From bioluminescent deep-sea dwellers to reef-gliding sentinels, sharks are sculptors of marine harmony. Their presence signals a healthy ocean, yet their mystery deepens with every encounter. To know sharks is to glimpse the untamed poetry of the sea, written not in ink but in motion. Here are 6 stories. On the morning of April 19, 2025, the waters off the coast of San Clemente Island, California, appeared deceptively calm. San Clemente Island had long served as a vital training ground for the United States Navy, its sheltered bays and challenging topography providing ideal conditions for amphibious operations and naval exercises since the early 1930s. The island's remote location, approximately 70 miles west of San Diego, allowed for extensive military activities while minimizing civilian interference. Lieutenant Commander Joaquin Ramirez Vasquez led a crew of 7 sailors aboard the rigid-hulled inflatable boat, or RHIB, designated Swift 6, as part of the Naval Special Warfare Advanced Water Navigation Training Program. At 36, Ramirez Vasquez had served for 14 years, earning commendations for his leadership during several Middle Eastern deployments. This morning's exercise focused on coastal infiltration techniques, relatively routine for the experienced crew. The Pacific waters around San Clemente were known for their biodiversity, including a healthy population of marine predators. Navy personnel frequently spotted blue sharks and the occasional hammerhead during operations, but sightings rarely disrupted training. The crew's mission that morning involved navigating through a series of underwater obstacles while maintaining stealth protocols. Petty Officer Second Class Tenzin Wangchuk monitored sonar readings from the boat's stern, while Seaman Apprentice Lakshmi Krishnamurthy managed communications with the support vessel positioned 2 miles offshore. At 9:37, as Swift 6 entered a narrow channel between 2 underwater rock formations, Ensign DeAndre Jackson noticed an unusual shadow moving beneath their vessel. Initially, he dismissed it as one of the large sunfish common to the area. The rigid-hulled inflatable boat continued on course at reduced speed, the engine's hum barely audible above the gentle slapping of waves against the hull. What happened next occurred with such violence and speed that later accounts from crew members contained slight variations. The massive great white shark, later estimated to be approximately 18 feet long, appeared to rise from the depths with deliberate purpose. Marine biologists would later suggest the shark likely mistook the boat's silhouette and engine vibrations for those of a distressed seal, prime prey for these apex predators. The shark breached partially, its enormous head clearing the water's surface as its jaws clamped down on the rigid-hulled inflatable boat's starboard pontoon. The impact sent shockwaves through the vessel, throwing Seaman Krishnamurthy and Petty Officer Third Class Malcolm Okafor into the water. The boat tilted dangerously as seawater flooded the punctured section. Lieutenant Commander Ramirez Vasquez immediately radioed a distress call, while Petty Officer First Class Zara Al-Farsi deployed a rescue line toward the sailors thrashing in the water. Okafor managed to grasp the line quickly, but Krishnamurthy had been thrown further from the boat. The shark, after its initial attack on the vessel, circled back with alarming speed. According to Wangchuk's account, the predator's dorsal fin cut through the water directly toward Krishnamurthy, who attempted to swim back toward the damaged, rigid-hulled inflatable boat. Despite Ensign Jackson's efforts to distract the shark by pounding on the boat's hull, a technique sometimes used to deter curious sharks, the great white continued its approach. Krishnamurthy later reported feeling something massive brush against her leg seconds before the shark's jaws closed around her right calf. The force pulled her underwater momentarily before the shark released its grip, perhaps confused by the taste of neoprene from her wetsuit rather than the blubber it expected. Ensign Jackson, displaying remarkable courage, dove into the water and helped drag the severely injured Krishnamurthy back toward the boat. By this time, Petty Officer Al-Farsi had deployed the boat's emergency shark repellent, a concentrated chemical irritant designed to temporarily drive away aggressive marine predators. The United States ship Coronado, a littoral combat ship conducting exercises nearby, responded to Ramirez Vasquez's Mayday call. Within 12 minutes, a high-speed rescue craft reached Swift 6's position. Medical corpsman Estefania Rodriguez Cho immediately applied a tourniquet to Krishnamurthy's leg, while the remaining crew was transferred to the rescue vessel. The shark continued to circle the damaged, rigid-hulled inflatable boat for several minutes after all personnel had been evacuated, occasionally bumping against the pontoons before finally losing interest and disappearing into deeper water. Navy photographers aboard the rescue vessel captured several images of the predator, which marine biologists from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography later identified as a mature female great white, likely over 30 years old based on its size and distinctive scarring patterns. Seaman Krishnamurthy was airlifted to a hospital in San Diego, where surgeons worked for 7 hours to repair extensive damage to her calf muscle and tibial artery. While the injury ended her hopes for special operations training, she recovered enough to continue her naval career in a technical capacity. The incident prompted a 3-week suspension of waterborne training exercises around San Clemente Island, while Naval Special Warfare Command reviewed safety protocols. The review led to the implementation of enhanced electronic shark deterrent systems on all training vessels and mandatory aerial reconnaissance of training areas before water insertion exercises. Marine conservation experts noted that the incident represented extremely unusual behavior for a great white shark. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka from the California Marine Mammal Center suggested that the unusual warm water temperatures that spring, combined with changes in local seal population movements, might have altered typical shark hunting patterns. He emphasized that such unprovoked attacks on vessels remained exceedingly rare. Lieutenant Commander Ramirez Vasquez received a Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal for his leadership during the crisis, while Ensign Jackson was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for his rescue of Seaman Krishnamurthy. The damaged, rigid-hulled inflatable boat was later transported to the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Carderock, Maryland, where researchers analyzed the bite patterns and force exerted by the shark, data that proved valuable for improving future naval craft designs. The incident, while traumatic for those involved, ultimately strengthened the Navy's understanding of operating in environments shared with potentially dangerous marine wildlife. For Seaman Krishnamurthy, who later shared her experience during naval safety briefings, the encounter provided a powerful reminder of nature's unpredictability and the importance of preparation even in seemingly routine operations. The summer of 2023 brought record-breaking tourism to Egypt's Red Sea coastline, with Hurghada's pristine beaches drawing visitors from across Europe and the Middle East. Among them was 29-year-old Lena Kowalczyk, a Polish-Ukrainian marine biologist who was 5 months pregnant with her first child. Hurghada had evolved from a small fishing village in the 1980s into an internationally renowned resort destination, its warm waters and vibrant coral reefs attracting divers and sunbathers alike. Local authorities prided themselves on the area's safety record, despite occasional reports of increased shark activity in recent years. Lena and her husband, Tomasz Kowalczyk, had chosen Hurghada for what they expected would be their final vacation before parenthood. The couple had met 6 years earlier while studying at the University of Warsaw and shared a passion for marine ecosystems. Though aware of her condition, Lena's professional background gave her confidence in the water, perhaps more than caution warranted. July 15th began like any other day at the Coral Paradise Resort, with tourists claiming poolside loungers and beach attendants arranging rows of colorful umbrellas along the shoreline. The temperature had already reached 98 degrees Fahrenheit by mid-morning, driving most visitors into the refreshing waters of the Red Sea. Resort staff noted nothing unusual, though several local fishermen had mentioned unusual fish migration patterns during the previous week. What none of the tourists knew was that approximately 2 miles offshore, a commercial fishing vessel had been illegally dumping fish waste and bycatch for several weeks. The practice, though prohibited by Egyptian maritime regulations, saved the operation significant disposal costs. These actions had gradually altered the feeding behavior of several bull sharks that typically remained in deeper waters, conditioning them to associate the shoreline with easy meals. At around 11:45 a.m., Lena waded into the calm, shallow waters near the resort's private beach. Tomasz had returned to their room to retrieve their underwater camera, leaving Lena floating peacefully in water barely waist-deep. Several children played nearby, their laughter carrying across the water as their parents watched from the shore. The 2.8-meter bull shark, a species notorious for its ability to tolerate fresh water and its unpredictable aggression, approached from deeper water, remaining invisible against the sandy bottom. Marine biologists would later determine that the shark was a mature female, likely drawn by the combination of fish waste in the water and the movements of swimmers. Witnesses reported that Lena showed no signs of distress until the moment of impact. The bull shark struck with explosive force, targeting her lower torso with devastating precision. The initial bite severed her femoral artery and tore through her lower abdomen, causing catastrophic trauma. Lena's scream cut through the ambient beach noise, instantly transforming the idyllic scene into chaos. Ahmed Mustafa, a resort lifeguard with 8 years of experience, was the first to respond. He later recounted how the water around Lena had already turned dark red by the time he reached her, just 20 seconds after the initial attack. Other tourists scrambled to evacuate the water, parents frantically grabbing children as panic spread across the beach. Tomasz, returning from their room, heard the commotion and dropped everything, running toward the shore. By the time he reached the water's edge, Ahmed and another tourist, a German emergency room doctor named Katharina Müller, were already dragging Lena's unconscious form onto the sand. Dr. Müller immediately began emergency procedures, but the blood loss had been too severe and too rapid. Despite their efforts, Lena was pronounced dead at the scene. Medical authorities later confirmed that both she and her unborn child had died within minutes of the attack. The resort closed its beaches immediately, and within hours, all neighboring facilities followed suit. Egyptian tourism authorities, concerned about the impact on the region's reputation, launched an investigation into the incident. Within 3 days, they discovered the illegal dumping operation and arrested the captain and first mate of the fishing vessel, Al Maher. Marine biologists from Cairo University's Oceanographic Institute, led by Dr. Fatima El-Sadawi, conducted extensive surveys of the coastal waters in the weeks following the tragedy. Their research revealed that water temperatures had risen 2.3 degrees Celsius above historical averages for July, disrupting traditional feeding patterns among larger predatory fish. Combined with the illegal dumping, these factors had created what Dr. El-Sadawi termed a perfect storm of risk factors. Tomasz Kowalczyk, devastated by the loss of both his wife and unborn child, established the Lena Kowalczyk Foundation for Marine Safety the following year. The organization focused on educating tourists about marine predators and advocating for stricter enforcement of waste disposal regulations in coastal waters worldwide. The attack prompted Egyptian authorities to implement one of the most comprehensive shark monitoring systems in the world, including aerial drones and underwater acoustic tracking devices. These measures, while unable to bring back Lena and her child, potentially prevented similar tragedies in the years that followed. In a cruel irony, Lena's doctoral research had focused on changing shark migration patterns in response to human activity and climate change. Her colleagues at the University of Warsaw posthumously published her findings, which included predictions about increased shark-human encounters in previously uncommon locations. The Coral Paradise Resort remained closed for 3 months following the incident, reopening only after installing extensive safety measures, including underwater nets and electronic shark deterrent systems. Despite these precautions, tourist numbers remained significantly depressed for the next 2 seasons. Local fishermen in Hurghada reported capturing the bull shark responsible for the attack approximately 2 weeks later, though marine biologists expressed skepticism about the claim, noting the difficulty of positively identifying specific individuals without distinctive markings. 5 years after the tragedy, a small memorial plaque was installed at the resort's entrance, bearing Lena's name and a simple message in multiple languages: "Respect the sea and its creatures." The plaque served as a quiet reminder of how quickly paradise can transform into catastrophe when human activity disrupts natural marine ecosystems. For Tomasz, who never returned to Hurghada, the memories of that July day remained painfully vivid. Through his foundation's work, he found some measure of purpose in transforming personal tragedy into public awareness, ensuring that Lena's expertise in marine biology continued to protect others, even after her death. The summer of 2018 brought unusually warm currents to South Africa's Eastern Cape Province, with water temperatures along Port Elizabeth's beaches reaching their highest point in 3 decades. Kings Beach, a popular swimming destination with its wide sandy shore and typically gentle waves, served as a recreational hub for both locals and tourists since the colonial era. The area had a complex history with shark encounters. The nearby Algoa Bay was known for its diverse marine life, including a significant population of great white sharks attracted by the robust seal colonies on the offshore islands. 28-year-old Sifo Dlamini had worked as a senior lifeguard at Kings Beach for 7 years, earning widespread respect for his swimming prowess and unwavering dedication to water safety. Born in the coastal township of New Brighton, Sifo had learned to swim in the dangerous currents of the Indian Ocean, developing skills that later earned him national recognition in competitive swimming. After narrowly missing qualification for the 2016 Olympic team, he had dedicated himself fully to his lifeguarding career, personally saving over 40 swimmers from dangerous rip currents during his tenure. On February 12th, crowds packed Kings Beach as temperatures soared past 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Municipal authorities had installed additional shark spotting towers the previous year, with trained observers scanning the waters continually during peak hours. The morning had passed uneventfully, with Sifo's team performing 2 routine rescues of swimmers caught in mild currents. At approximately 2:15 p.m., 15-year-old Amale Nkosi, visiting from Johannesburg with her family, ventured beyond the designated swimming area. An experienced pool swimmer, Amale had little understanding of ocean dynamics and quickly found herself caught in a powerful rip current that pulled her more than 100 meters offshore within minutes. Her initial calls for help went unnoticed amid the general beach noise. Thulani Mbata, a junior lifeguard stationed at the Eastern Tower, finally spotted Amale's increasingly frantic struggles. He immediately alerted Sifo via radio, reporting a swimmer in distress beyond the safe zone. Without hesitation, Sifo grabbed his rescue buoy and sprinted toward the water's edge. Witnesses later commented on his remarkable focus and calm demeanor as he dove into the surf. Sifo reached Amale within 90 seconds, his powerful freestyle stroke cutting through the choppy water with practiced efficiency. The terrified teenager was approaching exhaustion, having fought the current for several minutes. Sifo immediately instructed her to grab the rescue buoy while he assessed the safest route back to shore, aware that the same current that had dragged her outward could be used to navigate laterally before attempting a return. What neither Sifo nor the shore observers could know was that a 4.8-meter great white shark had entered the bay that morning, attracted by unusual baitfish movements caused by the warming water. Marine biologists would later determine that the shark was a young adult male, possibly disoriented by changing ocean temperatures that had disrupted normal migration patterns. As Sifo began towing Amale parallel to the shore, preparing to exit the rip current, the shark approached from deeper water. Backup lifeguard Zandile Mkize had already entered the water with additional support equipment when she spotted a dark shadow moving beneath her colleagues. Her frantic whistle signals came too late. The great white struck with explosive force, surfacing directly beneath Sifo and clamping its massive jaws around his torso. The initial impact separated him from Amale, who was thrown several meters by the violent water displacement. Witnesses on shore described a brief, horrifying moment when Sifo was lifted partially above the water's surface before being pulled under, the water around him instantly turning crimson. Zandile, displaying extraordinary courage, continued toward Amale, reaching the girl moments later. 2 additional lifeguards, Blessing Mokoena and Vuyisile Ndlovu, launched the rescue jet ski, reaching Zandile and Amale within minutes, and retrieving them as the shark circled back toward the blood trail. Despite an immediate emergency response, including a helicopter search launched from nearby Humewood, Sifo's body was never recovered. Marine experts suggested that the shark had likely carried him into deeper water immediately after the initial attack, a common behavior pattern when great whites make prey captures. Amale Nkosi was transported to Livingstone Hospital, where she was treated for shock and minor abrasions. In subsequent interviews, she repeatedly expressed overwhelming guilt about Sifo's fate, though psychologists working with the family helped her understand that responsibility lay not with her, but with the unpredictable forces of nature. The attack prompted authorities to close all Port Elizabeth beaches for 3 weeks, while conducting intensive aerial and boat-based shark spotting operations. Marine biologists from the nearby Bayworld Oceanarium, led by Dr. Nosifo Nkobo, installed additional acoustic tracking devices to monitor shark movements in the bay. The local community's response to the tragedy was immediate and profound. Within days, a memorial fund established in Sifo's name raised over 500,000 rand to support his aging parents and younger siblings. The Port Elizabeth Municipal Council unanimously voted to rename the Central Lifeguard Tower at Kings Beach as Sifo Dlamini Tower, with a bronze plaque commemorating his sacrifice. Sifo's former coach, Mandla Zaba, spoke at the memorial service held on the beach 1 week after the attack. He told the assembled crowd of nearly 2,000 mourners that Sifo had always acknowledged the risks of his profession, but believed that saving lives was worth any personal danger. Among the mourners stood Amali and her family, who had postponed their return to Johannesburg to attend the service. The following summer, Kings Beach implemented what became known as the Dlamini Protocol, enhanced safety measures including drone surveillance, additional spotters, and improved communication systems between lifeguard stations. The protocol was subsequently adopted by beaches throughout South Africa's eastern coast. 5 years after the tragic event, Amale Nkosi returned to Port Elizabeth to join the junior lifeguard program, inspired by the man who had given his life for hers. In her application essay, she wrote that honoring Sifo's memory meant ensuring that his sacrifice continued to save lives through improved water safety practices. For the community of Port Elizabeth, Sifo Dlamini became more than a local hero. He embodied the selfless dedication of those who watch over the waters where humans and nature's most perfectly evolved predators occasionally and tragically intersect. In April 2019, the remote Ba Atoll in the Maldives presented a pristine underwater paradise that had attracted divers and marine enthusiasts for decades. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization Biosphere Reserve, established in 2011, encompassed some of the Indian Ocean's most spectacular coral ecosystems, drawing researchers and adventurers eager to document its biodiversity. The area's isolation, approximately 120 kilometers northwest of the capital Male, had largely preserved its marine habitats from excessive tourism impact, though increasing water temperatures had begun affecting coral health in recent years. 34-year-old Marco Alvarez, a renowned underwater photographer and free diving instructor from Barcelona, had chosen the Ba Atoll for his latest documentary project focusing on reef ecosystems in transition. With 3 international photography awards and publications in National Geographic, Marco had developed a reputation for capturing marine life with remarkable intimacy, often diving without supplemental oxygen to create less disturbance in delicate environments. Marco had been staying at the Nautilus Resort for 9 days, establishing a daily routine of morning dives along the outer reef where blacktip reef sharks commonly patrolled. The resort's marine biologist, Dr. Farah Nassim, had advised Marco about the area's shark population, noting that while reef sharks were common and generally non-threatening, larger pelagic species occasionally passed through the channels between atolls during seasonal migrations. On the morning of April 17th, Marco set out alone in one of the resort's smaller boats, heading toward a site locally known as Shark Point, despite its relatively few shark sightings in recent years. Weather conditions were ideal: calm seas, excellent visibility, and minimal current. Marco anchored approximately 800 meters from the reef edge, where the seafloor dropped dramatically from 15 to over 600 meters, creating upwellings that attracted diverse marine life. After checking his equipment, a simple mask, fins, weight belt, and underwater camera housed in a specialized carbon fiber casing, Marco performed his pre-dive breathing exercises. His fitness tracker, later recovered from the boat, recorded his heart rate dropping to a measured 48 beats per minute, demonstrating the physiological control that had allowed him to hold his breath for over 6 minutes in competition settings. Marco slipped into the water at 9:42 a.m., descending slowly along the reef wall. His camera's timestamp showed that he spent approximately 12 minutes photographing a school of fusiliers before moving deeper toward a coral formation at 24 meters. The remarkable clarity of the water allowed sunlight to penetrate to this depth, creating ideal conditions for photography. What Marco failed to notice was the large female tiger shark that had entered the area from the deep channel to the north. Later analysis of his recovered camera footage showed the 4-meter predator appearing briefly in the background of several frames before the encounter, suggesting it had been tracking him for at least 3 minutes. According to marine biologists who reviewed the incident, tiger sharks are known for their cautious initial approach to unfamiliar objects. The shark likely observed Marco from a distance, assessing whether he represented potential prey. Tiger sharks possess among the most varied diets of all shark species, occasionally investigating objects that don't fit their typical prey profile. At approximately 10:07 a.m., as Marco ascended to replenish his air supply, the tiger shark accelerated toward him with remarkable speed. Unlike the stealthy approach typical of hunting sharks, this charge appeared more consistent with territorial behavior. The shark struck Marco with tremendous force, slamming into his torso rather than biting initially, a behavior sometimes observed when sharks are investigating rather than feeding. The impact knocked the air from Marco's lungs, momentarily disorienting him at a depth of approximately 10 meters. Before he could recover, the shark circled back and grabbed his right fin, pulling him deeper in a spiraling motion. Marco later reported that his training immediately took over, suppressing panic as he focused on protecting his vital areas while attempting to maintain orientation. After what Marco estimated to be 20 seconds, but camera timestamps confirmed was only 8 seconds, the shark abruptly released him and vanished into deeper water. Whether distracted by the taste of neoprene rather than flesh or simply completing an investigative behavior, the shark's departure allowed Marco to kick toward the surface. As he ascended, Marco noticed blood clouding the water around his right calf, where the shark's teeth had penetrated his wetsuit during the struggle. Despite the injury, he maintained sufficient composure to make a controlled ascent, avoiding the additional danger of decompression sickness. Upon reaching his boat, Marco applied a compression bandage from his emergency kit to the 18-centimeter laceration on his calf. The wound, though bleeding profusely, had fortunately missed major arteries. He immediately radioed the resort, reporting both his injury and the shark's presence in the area. The resort's emergency response team, led by Dr. Nassim and dive master Hussein Rashid, reached Marco within 17 minutes. By this time, he had secured his equipment and maintained pressure on the wound, actions that medical staff later credited with preventing substantial blood loss. At the Nautilus Resort's medical facility, Dr. Aishath Shafeu cleaned and assessed the wound, determining that while deep, it required only suturing rather than major surgical intervention. Marco received 27 stitches along with antibiotics to prevent infection, a significant concern with shark bite injuries due to bacteria present in marine environments. Marine biologists investigating the incident concluded that the attack was likely territorial rather than predatory. Dr. Nassim noted that tiger sharks rarely exhibited such behavior in the region, suggesting that changing ocean conditions might be altering traditional shark movement patterns and behaviors. Water temperature readings from the area had shown a 1.8 degrees Celsius increase compared to historical April averages, potentially influencing prey distribution and shark migration routes. Marco's recovery progressed quickly, though he abstained from returning to the water during his remaining time in the Maldives. The footage recovered from his camera provided valuable documentation of the encounter, which he later shared with shark researchers studying predator behavior. 6 months after the incident, Marco published an article in Diver magazine detailing his experience and emphasizing the importance of diving with partners in remote locations. He noted that while the encounter had been terrifying, it reinforced his respect for these apex predators, rather than instilling fear. The Maldivian Tourism Authority implemented enhanced shark monitoring in the Ba Atoll following the incident, including regular drone surveys and acoustic tracking of larger shark species. For Marco Alvarez, the scars on his calf served as a permanent reminder of the unpredictability of wild encounters and the importance of proper training when facing the ocean's most efficient predators. The rugged coastline of New Zealand's North Island had long attracted adventure seekers drawn to its spectacular underwater topography and abundant marine life. In December 2021, the small fishing community of Mangonui in Doubtless Bay was experiencing its busiest tourist season in years. as domestic travelers sought outdoor experiences following the country's reopening after the coronavirus disease restrictions. The area's history of commercial fishing dated back to European settlement in the 1800s, but in recent decades, it gained popularity among recreational spearfishers targeting kingfish and snapper in its clear, cool waters. 33-year-old Ethan Cole had established himself as one of New Zealand's most accomplished spearfishers, having represented the country in international competitions across the Pacific. A former Navy diver with exceptional breath-holding capacity, Ethan had recently opened a spearfishing school in Auckland, teaching both technique and conservation ethics to enthusiastic students. His December expedition to Doubtless Bay was meant to scout locations for an advanced course he planned to offer the following autumn. On the morning of December 8th, Ethan and his diving partner, Wairamu Tainui, launched their 5.8-meter boat from Manganui Harbor, heading toward a series of rocky pinnacles approximately 4 kilometers offshore. The location was known locally as the Needles, due to its sharp underwater formations that created complex currents attractive to baitfish and, consequently, larger predatory species. Weather conditions that day were ideal: light offshore winds, minimal swell, and water visibility extending beyond 20 meters. Ethan and Wairamu spent the morning making several productive dives, spearing 3 substantial snapper and a kingfish. Around midday, they moved to a deeper area where local fishermen had reported schools of trevally gathering around a submerged shelf that dropped from 15 to 40 meters. The abundance of fish in the area had reportedly attracted several shark species in recent weeks, though primarily smaller species considered non-threatening to humans. At approximately 1:30 p.m., after a brief rest period to rehydrate and check their equipment, Ethan entered the water for another dive. He carried his custom carbon fiber spear gun loaded with a 120-centimeter shaft and a catch bag attached to a float line. Wairamu remained on the boat, monitoring surface conditions and maintaining watch as standard safety protocol. Ethan's descent was textbook, a controlled head-down freedive that brought him to the edge of the underwater shelf within 40 seconds. At that depth, he spotted a substantial school of snapper hovering near the drop-off, perfect targets for his specialized 3-pronged spear tip. His first shot successfully pierced a 4-kilogram snapper, which he quickly secured to his catch line. The thrashing of the wounded fish sent vibrations through the water column, vibrations that marine biologists would later note can travel significant distances in ocean environments. Unknown to Ethan, a 2.5-meter mako shark had been patrolling the deeper water approximately 100 meters from his position. Makos, among the fastest sharks in the ocean with recorded bursts of speed exceeding 74 kilometers per hour, possess exceptional sensory capabilities that allow them to detect prey movements from considerable distances. As Ethan secured his catch and reloaded his spear gun, a mako shark, drawn by the wounded snapper's distress signals and guided by its ampullae of Lorenzini, homed in on Ethan with uncanny accuracy. Wairamu, watching from the boat, saw only a flash of blue-gray before the water exploded in white foam. The mako closed the distance in under 7 seconds, striking with such speed that it propelled both itself and Ethan several meters through the water. Ethan described feeling an impossibly fast impact against his left thigh before registering pain. The shark had struck him with its snout before twisting to bite, a common attack pattern for makos when targeting fast-moving prey. The initial collision stunned Ethan momentarily, but his training immediately triggered his emergency response. Rather than panicking, he released his catch bag while simultaneously drawing the knife he kept strapped to his calf. The shark, however, had already redirected its attention to the free-floating catch bag, which continued to emit the distress signals from the speared fish. This momentary diversion gave Ethan the opportunity to kick powerfully toward the surface, leaving a trail of blood from the laceration on his thigh. Wairamu, seeing the blood in the water, immediately started the boat's engine and maneuvered closer to his partner. He extended the boat hook toward Ethan, who grabbed it with both hands. With remarkable strength, Wairamu pulled Ethan aboard as the mako circled back, its dorsal fin cutting through the surface just meters from the boat before disappearing into deeper water. Once aboard, Ethan's professional composure allowed him to assist Wairamu in applying a compression bandage to his wound, a 30-centimeter gash that, though deep, had miraculously missed his femoral artery. Wairamu radioed for emergency assistance while steering the boat at maximum speed, toward Mangonui Harbor, where an ambulance was already waiting when they arrived 22 minutes later. At Kaitaya Hospital, Dr. Aroha Henare, a surgeon with experience treating shark bites, cleaned and assessed Ethan's wound. The laceration required 42 stitches across 3 tissue layers, but no arterial repair was necessary. Dr. Henare noted that the wound's clean edges suggested it resulted from a glancing bite rather than a sustained attack, consistent with the exploratory nature of many shark encounters. Marine biologist Dr. Cameron Robertson from the University of Auckland's Marine Science Department later interviewed Ethan about the incident. Dr. Robertson explained that mako sharks, while capable of extreme aggression, typically attack only what they perceive as prey. The shark likely mistook Ethan's wetsuit and movements for those of a wounded seal or large fish, particularly given the presence of actual wounded fish nearby. After 6 weeks of recovery and physical therapy, Ethan returned to diving, now always with a safety diver nearby. He incorporated the lessons from his experience into his teaching, stressing proper catch management and equipping his students with shark-resistant catch bags he developed. The Mangonui Harbor Master introduced new shark awareness protocols, including a flag system for recent sightings. For local spearfishers, Ethan's encounter underscored the ocean's unpredictability and the need for constant vigilance. A year after the incident, Ethan collaborated with New Zealand's Department of Conservation to develop educational materials about shark behavior and attack prevention, turning his frightening experience into an opportunity to promote safer coexistence between humans and these essential marine predators. The autumn of 2022 brought unusually warm water temperatures to California's central coast, extending the swimming season well into October. Monterey Bay, renowned for its deep submarine canyon and diverse marine ecosystem, had long attracted both swimmers and marine life enthusiasts. The area's complex underwater topography, with the canyon reaching depths of over 3,000 meters just offshore, created nutrient-rich upwellings that supported a remarkable food chain, from microscopic plankton to the bay's largest seasonal visitors, great white sharks. 42-year-old Benjamin Harrington, a software engineer and endurance athlete, had moved to Pacific Grove 5 years earlier, drawn by the area's natural beauty and outdoor recreation opportunities. An accomplished triathlete who had completed 3 Ironman competitions, Ben regularly trained in Monterey Bay's open waters, typically swimming 3 to 5 kilometers several mornings each week. His route often took him parallel to Lovers Point Beach, following a course popular among local distance swimmers. October 17th began like many of Ben's training days. He arrived at the beach shortly after sunrise, when the morning fog still clung to the coastline and few others were present. The water temperature registered at 63 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than usual for mid-October, but still requiring his 3mm wetsuit for comfortable extended swimming. Local marine conditions reports had noted increased sea lion activity in the bay, though Ben paid little attention to this detail as he performed his usual stretching routine on the beach. What Ben didn't know was that the past week had seen several juvenile elephant seals haul out on nearby beaches, unusual behavior indicating possible distress or disorientation among the pinnipeds. Marine biologists from the Monterey Bay Aquarium had documented this anomaly, but had not yet determined its cause. More critically, a 4.8-meter great white shark had been tracked entering the bay 3 days earlier, its presence detected by underwater acoustic receivers placed by Stanford University's Shark Research Program. At around 6:45 a.m., Ben entered the water and began his steady, measured freestyle stroke toward the outer buoy that marked the beginning of his typical training route. The morning's calm conditions allowed him to establish his rhythm quickly, and he soon settled into the meditative state that long-distance swimmers often describe, focused solely on breath, stroke, and the surrounding water. 20 minutes into his swim, approximately 600 meters from shore, Ben felt a sudden pressure change in the water beneath him. Having grown up swimming in Hawaii's shark-populated waters, he recognized the sensation instantly, a large object displacing water as it moved upward. Before he could react, a massive shadow passed directly beneath him, its size and speed unmistakable. The 4.9-meter female great white shark, later identified by researchers through bite pattern analysis, rose from the depths with deliberate purpose. Great whites typically hunt by approaching from below, using their countershading, dark above, light below, as camouflage against the ocean floor and sky respectively. The initial attack struck Ben's lower left leg with immense force, the shark's upper teeth sinking into his calf muscle while lower teeth punctured his wetsuit just above his ankle. Ben later described experiencing not pain but overwhelming pressure in those first seconds, followed by the sudden sensation of being pulled underwater. Drawing on his extensive water experience, he instinctively struck the shark's snout with his right fist, a defensive technique he had learned years earlier during ocean safety training in Hawaii. The blow, delivered with adrenaline-fueled strength, momentarily disoriented the predator. In the brief moment the shark released its grip, Ben kicked frantically toward the surface, his damaged leg trailing blood that billowed in the clear morning water. Breaking the surface, he immediately began shouting for help, while attempting to orient himself toward the nearest shore. The shark circled below, its distinctive dorsal fin cutting the surface approximately 10 meters away before disappearing from view. On shore, early morning jogger Priya Deshmukh, a cardiac nurse at Community Hospital of the Monterey Peninsula, heard Ben's cries and immediately alerted two nearby surfers, Joaquin Valdez and Timothy Nguyen. Without hesitation, both men paddled toward Ben, reaching him within 2 minutes. Joaquin later reported seeing the shark's shadow pass beneath his board as they helped Ben position himself across Timothy's longer surfboard. Working together, the surfers managed to paddle Ben toward shore while Priya called emergency services. As they approached the shallows, 4 additional beachgoers waded into the water to help carry Ben onto the beach. Priya immediately applied pressure to Ben's wound, using a beach towel as an improvised tourniquet above the bite, which had lacerated his calf muscle and damaged his tibial artery. Paramedics arrived within 8 minutes, stabilizing Ben before transporting him to Natividad Medical Center in Salinas, which housed the area's Level 2 trauma center. The emergency surgical team, led by Dr. Elena Rodriguez, worked for over 5 hours to repair vascular damage and stabilize the extensive soft tissue trauma. While the injury was severe, involving significant muscle and tendon damage, the team succeeded in saving Ben's leg. Marine biologists from California State University, Monterey Bay investigated the incident, concluding that the unusual concentration of young elephant seals in the area had likely attracted the shark to typically human-populated waters. Dr. Marcus Yamashita, who led the investigation, noted that the shark's behavior, a single investigative bite followed by release, was consistent with cases of mistaken identity, where sharks confuse swimmers, particularly those in wetsuits, with their natural pinniped prey. Following the attack, local authorities closed beaches along a 10-mile stretch of coastline for 7 days while conducting aerial surveys to track shark movements. The attack prompted county officials to accelerate the deployment of an artificial intelligence-powered shark detection system that had been under consideration for several years. Using underwater cameras and machine learning algorithms, the system could distinguish between sharks and other marine life, alerting lifeguards to potential dangers. Ben's recovery proved challenging but ultimately successful. After 3 weeks in the hospital and 6 months of intensive physical therapy, he regained approximately 80% of function in his injured leg. Though doctors advised against returning to open water swimming, Ben eventually resumed training in protected pool environments and later became an advocate for shark conservation, often reminding audiences that he was visiting their home, not the other way around. In a remarkable gesture of scientific contribution, Ben donated tissue samples from his wetsuit to Stanford's Shark Research Program, allowing scientists to analyze the shark's deoxyribonucleic acid and contribute to the ongoing database of great white populations along the California coast. The data helped researchers identify the specific shark as a previously tagged female that typically frequented waters further north near the Farallon Islands. The following year, Ben collaborated with the Monterey Bay Aquarium to develop a public education program about shark behavior and ocean safety. For Ben, the experience transformed him from victim to advocate, reinforcing his connection to the marine environment, even as it reminded him of its inherent risks and the importance of respecting the ocean's apex predators.